through the last of my thoughts, standing on the edge of my jaw. Everything I know will be gone in a minute, and that's alright, alright, 'cause I'm free, freer than I ever been before. Yeah, baby, I'm free, I'm freer than I ever been before, freer than I ever.
Hello, welcome everyone to the first installment of Exceptionally Asia. My name is Michelle, your host for today's session. Join us for this series of webinars held every month as we speak to some of Asia's most prominent creators and feature some of the most creative work that has emerged over the lockdown period here in Asia. We will also discuss what innovations may have emerged at work as we adapt to this new normal in a post-COVID world. Please join me in welcoming our two guest speakers today, Rob Middleton, Creative Director at Astro, and Faizul, founder of Parallax Pictures. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Hello, hello.
Now, just before we begin, just a touch of housekeeping for our audience joining us today. We will be taking questions at the end of the session. So if you have any questions for Rob and Faizul, hit the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window, leave your question there, and then we'll take it at the end. All right, let's kick off this first installment of what I think is a very exciting series. Rob, Faizul, I just wanted to check in with you both, see how you guys are and, maybe talk a bit about how do you think Malaysians and your community in general, the creative community in general, has been coping with the MCO period in Malaysia?
Okay. Well, I get a paycheck, and so it's easier for me than others. But for the freelance community out there, I think it was kind of a hard slog. Arts isn't that well, supported for some things, but others that were counting on it, the audio guys, audio shops, guys that were filming, voiceovers, whatever. It was kind of a little bit harder, but somebody that could probably speak to that better would be the sexy gentleman in the glasses, though. He's the one that actually, he's employing a few people and he's got to be struggling to get things done on his own. How was it with you?
Okay, yeah, well, basically, we weren't allowed, legally, people like me weren't allowed to work for almost 3 months, March 18th till June 15th. So yes, I totally agree with Rob's assessment about how freelancers and most production companies outside were basically having a hard time trying to get through. I mean, the reality was like Astro could still operate because they fell under essential services. Whereas for us, I mean, we still produce stuff for Astro even throughout this period, but however, most of it had to be done remotely. So it was a bit tough. We couldn't shoot anything new, obviously, only up till June.
Yeah, television production pretty much shut down, except having to figure out how we're going to do it by Zoom. Post-production, that continued on, but again, kind of hard for those guys. TV shows, TV series, movies, everything that had any sets or was bringing people together, that was pretty much shut down. So I'm not really sure what the repercussions have been for people with studios and audio post and things like that as well, but I'm sure that everybody's had it hard.
Was there any kind of like community or like support within the industry for people that has been affected, in terms of like jobs being stopped, projects being held, put on hold? Did you guys like get together to try and figure out maybe, some alternatives, like, some alternative work that could be done maybe, or changing the nature of some projects so that, some form of work could continue during the MCO period?
Oh, we continued working. Everybody It's just that we did it selfishly. We weren't, helping in the community. So we were trying to figure out new ways to do particular shows. We still had, we're a massive platform, right? We've got a bazillion channels in a variety of different languages. We had to still put in new content and that sort of stuff. Channels were kind of spinning their wheels, trying to figure out what to do and how to get things done. We had, a lot of ad sales clients who were just being pulled back a little bit as well. So, we tried to do square peg round hole kind of thing. Let's do a comedy show. Let's do it by Zoom with no audience. Let's do link up with live music and things like that as well. But the audience was really forgiving because we're getting used to not working with high standards. We asked our studio audience, or not studio audience, we asked our viewers at home to send in videos of themselves, what they were doing, trying to entertain everybody else, how they're getting by during the time period. And they sent in tons of stuff that they shot in their phones. We turned it around, posted it, put it back up in the air. It helped us out right off the bat, gave us some filler. Everybody was really interested in how others were actually handling stuff. So yeah, I don't really know what to tell you other than, studios here were out. We had planned out how to actually do things in operations with our own personnel and people. But even though Astro was, as Faizul said, an essential service, inside of the building itself, 90% of the people were not here. We have essential teams. Our promo team was essential. Our scheduling team is essential. Because we had to start producing tons of public service and trying to figure out how to integrate that into our promotional messages and push that out there. Work with the government and getting their messages across. News, of course, was very top line, pushing that stuff through there for their daily briefings and getting that stuff through there. But as far as actual production was concerned, it was a little bit harder. It took a while to figure out what to do.
So before we go into showcasing some of the works that were actually produced, and I know you guys have some videos to show us and share with us, Faizul, what are your thoughts as to did you think about, some of the projects that were put on hold during the MCO period that you had to kind of adapt and change in order to have some form of work continue?
Okay, based on what Rob said, because, all of us, we had to be selfish, right? The reality was, I've got to make sure my team put food on the table for my team. So we were hit in the sense that the good thing was we had shot a series for one of the broadcasters here literally 2 weeks before MCO. So we were kind of busy with post-production for 10 episodes throughout MCO. We were supposed to shoot a commercial on what would have been the second day of MCO. So that got canned literally last minute. Thankfully my client was, we've worked with them for how many years now, so they were able to say, okay, we'll postpone this job as soon as MCO lifts, then we will kind of reimburse you with this project to, since you've already started the work prior to MCO, and we're actually starting pre-production on that project right now. We had a few other branded content series which we pivoted. So it was supposed to be shot live action, and then because we still wanted to hit that deadline, obviously client wanted to hit the deadline, so it became an animated series. I actually wanted to show it today, but because we're still WIP on the project, so the client would rather not show it just yet. But yeah, it was a real pivot. It was planned as live action, everything, and then suddenly within like a 10-day period, we had to figure out, okay, we got to turn this guy into an animated character. And obviously, it's not like we have millions of dollars to work on this, right? And their budget goes from live action to animation, which obviously costs more, but we had to kind of work within what we already had.
Yeah, so I think it'll be great if, at some point when you're able to share it, I think that's a good conversation to have as well, because obviously when you change the nature of a project, it's not just turning a switch, right?
Yep.
But yeah, shall we take a look at some of the videos that you guys have? Maybe we'll
Stay home with us, because we've got lots of great complimentary entertainment for you and your family. All our learning channels.
First of its kind from the country.
Music.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
News. And more.
最緊要嘅係一齊
stream on demand and Astro Go anytime. Stay home and stay entertained with us.
Anda adalah manusia yang hebat.
Terima kasih kepada semua doktor, semua jururawat.
Membendung penularan wabak COVID-19 ini.
Polis Raja Malaysia, ATM.
All the frontliners. Terima kasih.
Respect.
Terima kasih kerana masih menjalankan tugas untuk memberi keselesaan kepada kita semua.
Waktu yang cukup sukar sepanjang tahun ini.
Golongan frontliners, nama anda semua akan terpahat dalam sejarah dekat.
Anda adalah bela kami. Ribuan terima kasih.
Hello guys.
Apa khabar Malaysia?
Kami untuk menghiburkan anda semua di rumah. Banyak aktiviti yang kita boleh buat supaya kita tak bosan.
你都珍惜同屋企人相處嘅時光。
Cuci tangan selalu.
Ke sana, ke sini. I know it's tough.
Assalamualaikum.
Stay safe.
Hiburkan diri anda.
Stay safe. Make sure you take care of yourself.
We can save the world. We will be there with you.
There is the winning.
Legendary, my brothers. For you to see now, John. Selamat Raya Aidilfitri.
Jangan sampai kami buat PC. Tu je.
Saiful Apek in the house. Rofi dia tulis soalan dekat tangan.
Patut nampak.
Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri. Indahkan senyuman, eratkan jalinan.
So Rob, do you want to take us through maybe those videos? They are produced during the MCO period. Tell us a little bit about, like, obviously we have seen different kind of footages, especially in the final video.
We had,
wanted to discuss that?
We're a massive platform. We're huge. We have 200 channels. We're in 6 languages. We have digital, pay-per-view, OD, free sat, radio. So this whole thing was a really big deal for us. And because we're pay TV, people pay for our service. And so we wanted to keep our customers happy. We need to, get out there and make sure that people aren't, churning out and doing whatever and, streaming other, opportunities that are out there. And I think we were pretty kind of well prepared when Hong Kong canceled the Rugby Sevens back in February, which is, Rugby Sevens is a massive deal in Hong Kong. And so that made everybody here sort of sit up and take notice. And to give our management credit, they had to do an exercise. What if, Euros canceled? What if, the Olympics is canceled? And at the time, it seemed pretty far-fetched. But in retrospect, it was kind of genius, going through there and figuring out what we could do. And that translated to people and everything else. And so prior to everything happening, they went out and they worked out deals with all of our channel partners, movies, HBO, Fox, that sort of stuff, education that you saw. And so that we got it from them so that we could actually offer it to everybody, even the free sat guys, a lot of the stuff for free. And so they could say and sample everything that was actually on the platform and keeping everybody happy, that way. And it was, it was genius. It kind of worked out that well. Sports was an issue because, of course, across the planet, there was no sports. And so, we're trying to find ways to keep those guys happy. Different groups, Fox and that sort of stuff started, going back into libraries and playing other stuff. But, we had to change our messaging a little bit so that we, would be, with the audience a little bit. You'll see everything that we had at the time were finishing off somewhere along the lines of, stay home, stay safe, stay entertained with us. We're trying to, dovetail into our public service messages as well. And we put our wallet where our mouth is by, pretty much offering up all of the content for nothing and for reducing the cost for other people. The programs being shut down, we were trying to find other ways to get things going. So, we added a concert channel. We added another movie channel for a genie for our Indian community. We were scrambling around behind the scenes of trying to get things going, but on air, I think we came out doing quite well. We created well over 100 public service messages. They were at the beginning were educational. This is it. You wash your hands, social distancing, wear a mask, don't go outside. Listen to everything else that's actually there, and then sort of more, together with you, and thanking, the people that are actually making the sacrifices out there for our frontliners, and then, changing off to, now where we are, getting back into production, sort of moving things forward again. It's the new normal, but, we're really pushing ourselves hard. So for the content, we did the best that we could. And for the messaging, I think, we did quite well, especially, we were quite sincere with the caring part and sticking together with our community. By offering everybody, the movies and everything else that we actually could, I think we came off being, not a bad group of guys.
So tell us a little more about the last video, which was produced for the Hari Raya festive period, right? And this is a very...
We had all this stuff taking place. Well, we had Ramadan and Raya happening, right? So we had, everything going there. And plus at the same time, as MCO hit, we had a whole, contingent lineup of all of this different program we were going to do, all of these things that were going to be live, all of these other things. So we had to figure out different ways of actually getting it done. So the promo that you saw there was for one particular show where everybody, does in things from Zoom as live and cut together and do whatever. And so that's anchored by AC, one of our hosts. But we had a variety, tons of programming like that, not just on our Malay channels, but on others. But because it was Raya, and because, all of these other things were actually happening, we had to be very, conscious of getting as much new, fresh, entertainment out there as we possibly could. And that's the way that we did it.
Because I think that really signals for me, during this whole COVID situation, audience acceptance as to how content is produced, how content is delivered. And we can talk more about that. But first we have Faizul. Faizul, would you like to share some of your videos? We'll take a look at Faizul's videos first and then we'll talk through them.
Drivers, do 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 do. Drivers, do 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 do. Lebih fit, do 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 do. Lebih fit. Drivers, do 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 do. Drivers, do 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 do. Gembira, do 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 do. Gembira. Yeah. Drivers, do 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 do. Drivers, do 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 do. Lebih fit, do 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 do. Lebih fit. Drivers, do 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 do. Drivers, do 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 do. Gembira, do 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 do. Gembira. Jom beli, do 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 do. Beli drivers, do 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 do. Jom beli, do 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 do. Gembira dengan drivers.
Okay, that Baby Shark song is going to be in my head for the rest of the day, and it's totally your fault. Okay, tell us a little bit about the production of the video, because obviously that was done during the MCO period. Tell us a little bit about how you accomplished that.
Okay, yeah, people are probably wondering why are they showing a Baby Shark video? So basically, this project is a collaboration between Astro, between the client Dripers, and obviously the owners of the Ping Fong World, which is Smart Study, which is based in Korea. So there's 3 major parties, and then us, of course, who are actually producing this. So we started pre-pro, so to speak, before MCO, and then the lockdown happened. Then obviously everything got delayed. Then it got to a point where obviously the client has decided to make this investment, right? There is a time frame to that investment. So if they didn't hit a particular date, then conceivably it could have been canceled. But obviously they didn't want that to happen. So they said, okay, what's the best possible way that we can still move forward with this, even throughout this lockdown? So obviously we had to wait until it got to a point, I think it was late May or mid-May. So it became a conditional movement control order. So certain things were lifted, because prior to that, I couldn't even leave 10 kilometers from my house. That's how bad it is. So once it became a conditional MCO, then Astro helped us out to get access to studios. And then obviously our talents, we had to segregate them. So we had 4 sets of talents. We had Nabil, who is one of Astro's top hosts. So he came in first, settled everything in the morning, clear out the set, next talent comes in, settle them, next. So we had to really segregate for the whole day. Obviously, we had as best an SOP practice as we could, because at that point, there wasn't official guidelines yet on how to film and what's the SOP for even businesses and whatnot. So we kind of had to figure that out based on what we were reading, which is being done in the UK. Because I think in Iceland, they were shooting a Netflix series. So we kind of picked and pulled from wherever we could, like, okay, this should be the best way that we can afford to put this thing together. So we shot it in a day, and then obviously post-wise, it took a long time because we'd had to deal with, Astro was fast, and then we'll have, say, 2-day workaround for a client to come back with comments, and then we had to deal with Korea. Now the problem was, lockdown was so bad for them at one point that they couldn't even get access into the office to get files for us. So we were animating without a background. We didn't have this element, that element. So we had to wait like 3 weeks. And then they sent us one element and they said, okay, we can only go into the office next week to get you this other thing. And so it just dragged on. Then obviously we had to get a singer to come in and sing the song, right? So she had to record a scratch track at home. It's just horrible, but it was enough for us to have the tempo. And then our audio engineers were at their studios trying to work out to fit her lyrics with the tempo, her singing with the tempo, with this, because it's slightly different than other Ping Fong songs that you've heard before. So they gave us a few different options that we had to kind of tweak to suit, because obviously the lyrics are very different. Yeah, but in total, I would say post almost took us about a month and a half, 6 weeks, I think. Mm-hmm. So the spot finally was released late June.
So I think hearing you describe the process that you've had to go through to produce this spot, I think is a perfect segue to the next question. You know, given this global pandemic situation, we are living in a post-COVID world, right? There are things that are obviously going to be done differently, and you know, we have to be prepared for these disruptions. Can you, Rob and yourself, take us through maybe, you know, what are some of the disruptions or maybe even new innovations that could have come about this situation, this COVID situation, and maybe what are some of the lessons that you've learned, you know, from everything that's happened, because, you know, this could be the new normal for us for I don't know when, and then who's to say we won't face something else similar down the road, you know? So what are the lessons that you are going to take with you as we move forward?
Well, sure. Well, first off, Faizul, man, that spot, I feel for you, the torture you must have gone through, listening to Baby Shark over and over and over and over again as you're cutting that thing. I'm amazed that, you know, nobody died. But for us, physically, for our team, we've got, because we have such a large, you know, platform, we have quite a large team, and with media planners and schedulers and, of course, promo producers. And so physically, we're not in one location. We're in different locations. Half of the team is in Cyberjaya, half of the team's here, but we're split between different parts of the building. We're not supposed to be in contact physically with each other, but we're in contact constantly all the time by, you know, stuff like this. And that also brings in, you know, other people that are at home who are quite bored. They want to get involved. So you've got lots of channel managers, show producers, line producers, other people are involved in doing whatever. And sometimes that's great, and sometimes, you know, not so much, you know, because you can't get on with the job quite a bit. Everybody's got to get their 2 cents in a little bit. So sometimes, you know, you get a lot of creativity by committee, but, you know, yeah, you deal with it, you move on, and that's that way. For us, we've sort of worked out best speed for getting materials, cutting it, sending out for approvals, what format sizes, and that sort of stuff. And then just as Faizul was talking about, as far as audio is concerned and that sort of thing as well. Now that our facility is getting back open, our voiceover guys can come in. So before, people were just recording tracks wherever they could. We're trying to find ways to actually get that up and running. So we're sort of a bit prepared for that. But what kind of a missed opportunity might have been almost within a week, research was telling us that your prime time doesn't exist anymore. And remember, at the same time, we had all of the channels were open, so people could watch and sample anything they wanted. We opened up Astro Go, our digital service, to pretty much everybody in the country. You could see whatever you wanted. Our free sat service was up and open. So, you know, it was one of those things where normally if people have a lot of choices, you know, they don't really make a lot of choices, but this time they were sampling things all over left, right, and center. And so our local channels, that took a little bit of pressure off them for putting stuff up there, but they were also very, very concerned about, you know, commitments to clients and that sort of stuff about getting viewership and everything else. But it's not going to happen. So within about a week, our data guys, as I said, prime time doesn't exist anymore. People are not generally watching, tuning in at 9 o'clock on a Friday. People are watching, they're getting up, they're scratching their nuts, and they're watching TV with their friends or their family from, you know, 10 o'clock till 6. And that's what you've got to actually go with. It's open, it's on. You've got to start looking at stacking your programming that particular way. And so for that, we're trying to get the channels to go with that. But again, at the same time, at least to start with, people didn't know how long the MCO was going to go on for. Maybe it's going to be over in a month, maybe 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. Here we're still going and pushing it that forward. So, and for us, while we did it for the platform, creating sort of a bit of a drive of giving us a bit of personality, kick up to, you know, be, you know, very sincere and be involved with the audience. Each of the channels could have been doing that themselves as well. We could, you know, been looking at, you know, really driving home a quirky personality for, you know, one channel, or something a little bit more funny with somebody else, to really drive home things. Some of the stuff in the States that you'll see from Sci-Fi or Comet or from IFC, they really had, you know, some fun with the whole thing, the way it was done, the way that their promos were cut, the way that they presented themselves. They really sort of reinforced the image of who and what they were, and the, you know, their personality of the channels. And that's something we kind of, you know, didn't quite get a lot of effort into here because we were pushing out so much stuff constantly all the time. But we did, I think, quite well for it as far as the platform's concerned. So I think that was kind of a missed opportunity. But also movies. We had, we've got a division shop that produces and puts out films. Of course, they're in production hiatus, but they've got their films coming out. There's nobody going out to movie theaters, and so Bloodshot. If you remember the you know, the bald guy,
Vin Diesel.
Family, everything
horrible.
You know, for the family guy. Yeah. So that was put out immediately, as opposed to direct-to-video. It was pay-per-view that you could actually see, and it was promoted actually quite well. You saw it everywhere. So they tried to do the same kind of thing here. So we put it as pay-per-view on our platform. The stuff, not the Vin Diesel stuff, but the stuff from Shaw, and we're trying to open that up to other opportunities with other film suppliers and distributors that they could do it with us, as opposed to going on to. We have a service called Astro First and Astro Best that take things immediately after or simultaneous with cinema release, and instead just putting it straight up so cinema in your home. And that came off okay as well. And gave us a little bit of money.
I think it's very interesting what you said earlier about how audiences are also changing how they're interacting with companies and with brands. And as marketers, we have to think about what is our authentic voice, and that has changed given, you know, COVID and everything else. People are responding to content and to channels and you know, brands in a very different way.
People were sampling a lot of stuff. Our viewership was way high. It just went, during the daytime, it went up something like 30 to 40%. Everything else across the board, our streaming services, other stuff was really high. The only thing that didn't go up was our DVR. People weren't recording and playing back programming anymore. You know, they had just so much to choose from. They weren't, you know, doing that kind of thing, which I don't know if that's good or bad. They were just happy with what it was, but for the most part, yeah. And, you know, we're trying to get, you know, ask the right questions and find the right answers. You know, people are watching what, people didn't watch this other thing, why, or people are watching things simultaneously in one household, you know, or people watching in a TV, or they're watching on a variety of different devices at the same time. what are people actually watching? Their viewing habits, it's completely different than what it was, 4 months ago. And how is that going to affect what we're doing now? And how is that going to affect revenue? Plus interactivity, as opposed to just, there was a lot of, one-way stuff, just sticking it out there and trying to be that way, but trying to find ways to be a little bit more interactive with the audience. That was, stuff that we were exploring that I think we will be pushing a little bit harder in the next couple of months.
So we can talk a little more about what you guys think might be the emerging opportunities, for companies moving forward or brands moving forward. But before we do that, Faizul, some thoughts to, what are the key takeaways or some of the key lessons that you have learned and will take with you moving forward before we look at some of the videos that you guys also have produced post MCO?
Key learnings. To be honest with you, for those who, work regionally, obviously you got stuff like Polycom and all. So we're kind of used to talking with people over in Hong Kong or Singapore or whatnot. But yeah, now even for productions, like we're supposed to do virtual casting moving forward. Yeah, so potential actors will submit through the talent agencies recorded videos of themselves performing as per the brief. And then obviously that's collected and kind of curated before it comes to the director and the agency. And then we'll curate that again, present the client. Once client is happy with their selection, and then we'll do virtual workshops with the talents before a shoot. So yeah, we'll only see them pretty much the first time when we do wardrobe fits, probably like a day or two before shoot.
So no more Harvey Weinstein kind of stuff.
No, I wish.
All right, shall we take a look at some of the videos that you guys have shared with us for post MCO? I think we can start the video playback.
Permission to come aboard.
Under a starry sky, a sky so blue, we dream a dream tonight.
Do you know where you are?
I'm in a dream.
Come true. And there's nothing like this feeling we have. We found our bliss, and there's nowhere we would rather be. Yeah, there's no place like this.
Perintah Kawalan Pergerakan.
Tekal tenang, hapus COVID-19.
来关注新冠肺炎的疫情进展。
மருத்துவம், ராணுவம், காவல்துறை.
Andalah mira negara.
We're here for each other. Always. Thank you for your support. Let's continue to stay safe.
No place like this.
You know what's game on.
What a comeback! I cannot believe what we've seen.
You know that's game on.
What a goal! Sort it out! It's time to get going. What a fight! What a superb goal!
The wait is over. Game on.
So Rob, do you want to maybe take us through?
Yeah, sure. Again, that was, because we're a pay TV service, we're trying to keep everybody happy, and we're trying to thank people for staying with us, and thank you for not turning out, and don't worry that things are getting better and that sort of stuff as well. So the first spot was more along the lines of, just giving people a better broad idea of all the content that's actually out there, that's there, and thanking them for, staying with us during that time period. That's been still going on and on and on. We still offer stuff. And the other spot was as soon as the sports lineups were announced for the next 2 months, we created an entire campaign of Game On to get to make our sports guys happy, because again, sports is a cornerstone of pay TV. You want to make sure that your sports guys are happy, keep them talking, keep them on the platform, and so we had that Game On, and then we translated that to So On, which is a campaign for all of our other content, which is coming up soon. So and On together, we make the word soon, and it's so on. Oh, it's gonna be, yeah. This is so on. This is so great. This is good. And so all those campaigns are kind of working together. So you see a lot of on, coming from us for the next little while. But those are campaigns to keep people on the port happy with the platform and to keep connecting with them, to make sure that they still know that all those other choices are actually out there. We still want them consuming our OTT, our on-demand, our streaming services, everything else that we have actually got. So, that's what the drive of those guys are actually for.
Sure. So Faizul, shall we take a look at your videos? You have 2 videos to show us.
Yeah.
Ramadan, keindahannya dilihat dari mata hati.
Dah makan, Dek?
Puasa, so.
Oh, lupa lah.
Tak apa.
Ada kalanya dalam sebuah perjalanan tersisip pelbagai ujian. Yang berat kita ringankan. Yang menitis peluh jangan tergugat niat. Namun sebesar mana dugaan, ada yang lebih hebat. Menjadikan kita lebih kuat di dalam menempuh kemuliaan bulan yang penuh rahmat.
My name is Red Hong Yi. I am an artist, and I've decided to come home to uncover Sabah to find inspiration for my next artwork. Join me on my great art venture. This whole art venture project came about a couple of months ago when National Geographic contacted me, and because I've been a fan for a long time, I was super happy to have the opportunity to show people a bit of my hometown. I forgot how beautiful my home state is. I've spent the last few days revisiting all the things I love about Sabah for my next artwork. My experience driving the Triton, it was smooth and it was easy to get around tight corners and up hilly terrains, so that was great. So I've decided to do an artwork of a world map because I've been traveling around a lot the last couple of years, and I've used tires as my paintbrush to symbolize my journey in life and footsteps all over the world. I was able to make some really interesting patterns by turning the wheels in tight spaces, and I've used the pickup a couple of times whenever I have projects here, whenever I need to transport materials. So that helped me a lot in not just the artwork, but throughout the whole journey. It's been really fun showing the team my hometown and things that have influenced me and things that are uniquely Sabahan. So I hope that you would be able to find inspiration in your own backyard, because you never know what you might find. I feel super honored and very grateful to be able to work with National Geographic as well as Mitsubishi on this project. They have chosen my hometown of all places for me to find inspiration, and I'm super grateful. So thank you to everyone involved. My name is Red Hong Yi. I am an artist, and I've decided to come home to uncover Sabah to find inspiration.
So Faizul, can you take us through with the making of the video, how do you think that's going to change in a post-COVID world for you?
Okay, so the McDonald's commercial was shot for last year's Ramadan Raya campaign. And the big takeaway from that was that's actually a very big budget commercial. The brand is McDonald's, as you all know. I shot that over 3 days. There's also other elements to the shoot as well, which came out as separate spots, but that was their big key campaign for the year. Obviously, this year for Ramadan Raya, only a few selected brands pushed ahead to do festive commercials, all primarily done as remote shootings. So I did get a few offers to do it, but I was a bit uncomfortable with the whole remote filming process, because basically they would send the camera to the talent's house, minimal lighting, set it up yourself. So via Zoom, I'd have to tell them, okay, pan left, tilt up. I just felt that lack of control. So I wasn't so comfortable with it. I know I'm an asshole, but so obviously with McDonald's, I had pretty much like a 35-man crew for that. We were shooting 2 red cams, full on. Whereas the example that I gave for the Nat Geo campaign was, it's a small crew. I think there was only 6 of us who traveled to Sabah to film with. And at the end of the day, the storytelling style is quite similar for both spots. Obviously, visually, there is a gap between the two, but even the client and Nat Geo were quite happy with how we were able to achieve that on a limited budget and with limited resources. So I would think moving forward, because this kind of ties back to what you had asked earlier about opportunities moving forward post-MCO. The reality is, I mean, the days of big budget commercials they're drying up, right? Instead of having probably 20, 25 big high-end commercials in a year in this market, or maybe 30, now maybe about 10 to 15. So the rest of that money is actually being allocated by clients to do more targeted campaigns, social media-wise as well. Because, I mean, I don't blame them. They're saving on ad spend. But yeah, that means there's opportunities for indie filmmakers, freelancers to get their foot into the commercial industry. So yeah, so there is that possibility for all these guys to actually get into the commercial industry and do good stuff without spending so much money.
That's a good point. So I think before we move into the Q&A session, I just want to ask one last question. If you could, both of you could see one positive change to come out from this situation, what do you think it would be? Or if you had an opportunity to affect one positive change in our industry, what would it be?
Wow, that is a big question.
You've done a lot of positive stuff.
Well, from Faizul's end, yeah, but I really like her name was Red.
Yeah.
Were you shooting on Red?
No.
Oh,
I shot McDonald's on Red.
Oh, I see. But still, I mean, the tire track stuff, kids are going to see that and they're going to get in their dad's cars and they're going to start driving all over the driveway and start doing stuff. I think that's great. The changes would be, I think clients from Faizul's side, anyway, from our side as well, it was interesting to see, all the different parts in the process, and maybe that's why, budgets have gone down, or, you had 25 big spots going down to 15, to see all of those different things coming in. We talked about it the other day there, where you said, Michelle, that there's a lot of spots that seem kind of the same. And you look on YouTube, and there's a whole cut of tons of different spots of people out there that are, talking through the exact same, nearly the exact same topic, saying, we'd like to, during this unprecedented or troubled or, difficult times, we'd like to thank our employees who leave the safety of their homes so you can be safe in theirs. People, family, now, especially now, more than ever, we may be apart right now, but, together we're behind you. We've always been there for you. We always will, that kind of stuff. And then buy our shit. So it's a lot of really lazy copywriting because it's just kind of the same. And it very much came across as being, the more you saw it, even Trump supporters would understand that there was no sincerity in there. There was no connection really with them at all. It was just sort of there as fodder. And I think that's the kind of stuff went through. And then behind the scenes ourselves, where we're involved, and sometimes we've got a big show coming up, and agencies involved in doing things there as well, without them being able to understand how to operate a little bit better. They're kind of falling behind a lot of things. And so our young guys are cranking stuff out, logos, elements, backgrounds, ideas, stuff that's very, very quick and fast and works incredibly well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, as Faizul said, a crew of 35 guys. You can, get across some incredibly good stuff that can stick. And so for us, I think, I think what people are kind of learning is, superficial over substance ain't good. So you have to be sincere. You have to have some sort of connection that's actually going to be going to people. You have to be able to follow up, and if you're going to make a promise, you better be able to deliver on what that promise actually is and live up to who you're presenting yourself to be. Period. And so I think that's something that's going to be coming up.
Faizul?
Well, I'd say because, okay, I mean, talking about content, I'm actually talking to a party now about doing a long form series, which I kind of stayed away for all this time, but I'm very interested to move forward with this because they said, after this whole MCO and what's happened, they just want to come up with content that would put a smile back on people's faces. And instead of doing it the typical drama way, they're kind of positioning it slightly as a premium miniseries. So which means they're actually willing to put more investment into it to make sure that it's almost like we come back with a bang. And yeah, they even asked me, like, can we shoot this on Red? And I'm like, huh? You're willing to shoot a drama series on Red? I've never heard of that here. Because, that's the Netflix realm, right? Where you're shooting on those kind of cameras. So it's interesting. And the topic that we're talking about obviously has some kind of relation to what happened during MCO. So it's interesting for our viewers. Obviously, I can't talk too much about it, but I mean, it's interesting with the fact that we've gone through this period where we know content is king at the end of the day. People are hungry. They're craving for good content. And like Rob said, some of the stuff came out was really unsincere. They just kind of put stuff out there just to fill up the numbers, so to speak. Yeah. So it's good to see someone who's willing to do, not to say the right thing, but they care about the customer at the end of the day, because that's what we all should be doing.
Very true.
This is great. So I think we have a couple of questions coming in from our attendees. Thank you. Please continue to send in your questions. But first off, we have someone, this is more of a shout out really. It's Lim-Buxton. I'm sorry, I hope I got your name right, Lim-Buxton. Hey Faizul, this is Thomas from Hong Kong.
Yes, I used to work with Thomas back in Net Geo in Hong Kong.
Okay, so yes, hi Thomas. If you have a question for both Rob and Faizul, please hit us. We have another question coming in here. It's a budget-related question, not addressed to anyone in particular, but I mean, please, I think both your insights would be useful here. Do you feel that content creators are likely to use new resources for their production work, or would they be more inclined to work with the resources they already have?
Well, I think it's going to go both ways, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people that are kind of lazy and stuck in the way things are actually done and going to wait for things to get back to the normal and go for how that's going to be. Yesterday, we went into did our first promo shoot since there's time going on, and that was done, less people and staying away, but I mean pretty much the way that it was done before. But nowadays, you can make a movie on an iPhone. You can put stuff together in particular ways. There's lots of different opportunities to go with it. And as you said before, maybe it's just within the framework of the MCO or COVID-19 that people were getting used to more quality content, but presented in an unquality fashion. Audio's not very good, video's not 4K, editing's still good, and everything else actually going with it, but maybe the mixing's not right, the sound environment's not very good. Maybe that's a little bit more forgivable. So I think it's given an opportunity for other people to stick their thing input from our viewers at home. We got well over 100 different videos that people sent in, and some of them they've edited themselves actually quite well, right to time, right to the frame, and mixed in music and things like that as well, which kind of made it a little bit difficult for us because we have to pay rights and things. We have to be careful about that. But yeah, some of the stuff is very creative and very, very good.
Faizul, your thoughts?
Okay, so I mean, from a production standpoint, I mean, I would say there's two ways we can go about this. One is if he's talking about resources, if it's equipment wise, you know, obviously because some content creators don't own equipment, right? They would rent the equipment. So potentially, yes, because there's a bit too much money going out to cover rental, and obviously perhaps because budget is lower, then they might have to use new resources, or whether shooting on phones or whatnot. Then there's the other side of it is we're talking about, from a client perspective, the resource would be vendors. So you've got, say, a guy like me who charges so-and-so per day, and then you've got a new guy who's done good work, and, you know, because now perhaps the budget has come down a bit, so I have to come down as well. So the problem is my costs have to come down relatively, you know, it's a big gap to cover, whereas this guy might be more in that range. So for a client, in this particular environment, there is no harm in going down with a new resource that way.
The world of freelance, my friend. That's
yeah. Yeah, because the reality is, the more options you have, you know, it's better for the client, obviously. So even for us, when we use vendors, right? Like if I want to use this cam operator or this audio post house, I mean, having those options means you can pick and choose. But obviously, we'll always choose based on quality first. Price is second, quality first.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it has affected the advertising agencies, right? Because, you know, they're big. Nothing against advertising agencies, except, you know, I don't think they do a very good job. You know? But I think things they're on a roller coaster at the moment. So I think probably more client direct to you would be happening in the future. You performing a lot of the roles that agencies would have done before, helping them look after the things. And so I think they need to I think this has been a wake-up call for advertising, to really figure out how they can fit in and how they can go forward.
So we have one more question, and I think we have about just enough time for that one question. What is the best way to network with content creators or potential clients in this period?
I think this is probably the best way, actually. Attending, because throughout MCO, Roger Deakins, who is a world-class cinematographer, he won the last 2 Academy Awards for Best Cinematography. So he started a podcast. And I've been watching the podcast religiously, purely to see what they have to say. And, you know, the guys who he talks with are also titans of the industry as well. So it's not necessarily a way to network directly with them, but the reality is you at least have that access. Whereas in the past, you know, you just hear, oh, this guy's a legend. And, you know, you can see the work in the cinemas and whatnot, but there's no way to interact with him. But now, with all this, I think this is definitely the way moving forward.
Rob?
I agree completely. I come from this weird family where everybody's kind of involved in the industry in some way, shape, and form. And, you know, the more that these guys have been putting themselves forward and giving more access to their heads and knowledge, and it's fantastic. But as far as actually connecting with people, my LinkedIn box every day has like 45 or 50 different bits to it, and I religiously accept everybody. And people are constantly writing all the time, not necessarily saying that their job's available to do whatever, but I've got this. What do you think? You know, what do I? You know, should I edit this? Whatever. And so people that are, you know, that have a little bit of time, then give some feedback, and so start things up and doing whatever. But something like Promax is another great way of getting things done. Also, you know, if people really need like great voiceovers for, you know, whatever they're doing across the industry, I know a guy who is desperate for cash because of everything that's taking place. It can really, you know, help you out as far as you know, commercials and sizzle reels and things like that as well. So just give me a call on LinkedIn or whatever, and I'll connect you to him. He's got really good rates and he's really nice. And he can introduce you to Faizul as well, probably, if you want to get into the filming and forward.
So I think we've answered that question definitely. This is one of the best ways to connect and to network. I mean, I absolutely agree. I think LinkedIn and, you know, just frankly going on podcasts, going on webinars, just getting involved in the conversation. I think that's one of the best ways to stay connected. We just have one final question. It's from Tina. Tina, she asked, how do you think Hollywood filmmaking will be affected post-COVID? Ooh, that's a big question.
My brother-in-law is quite a renowned producer. He's worked with people that Faizul had mentioned. He produced, Brokeback Mountain and the Assassination of Jesse James by the Card, Robert Ford. He's got like 7 different television series in production, Winona Ryder. As soon as all that stuff locked down, he had teams of 350 people were suddenly unemployed. And so now that everything's back up, trying to get things going and doing whatever, all of a sudden everything's layering on top of each other. You look at our studio down in Johor. I mean, that wouldn't have been working for the last little while, but now it's been pre-booked or it's been post-booked, or how is that actually going to work too? I don't know. It's a lot of changes to the industry. Harvey Weinstein as well. Don't be touching things. Putting things together in particular ways. Shooting a lot of green screen. There's a shitload more green screen stuff coming out. Blue screen, green screen as well. Less location stuff. I think, and the skit that you mentioned the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's in there too. As far as we're concerned, we're just happy that things are kind of moving back in that direction, but not for the States. The States is kind of screwed very much. And so Asia, I don't know. I mean, Hong Kong has gone back. Singapore, I don't know.
I think we are in a generally better position than in the US at the moment, because there are so many productions that you hear about. I think LA opened up recently. They were thinking about going back to shoot in limited numbers, but then they had to shut down again because of the surge in cases. So yeah, Faizul, what are your thoughts about this? How do you think Hollywood in general will be changed, or how will they, move forward?
I don't think necessarily the workflow will change, except for the fact that, I mean, SOP-wise, obviously it will change. But, I mean, the good thing is about Hollywood, I would say, is the fact that, I mean, everyone takes their job very seriously. It's a craft, right? So there is also a significant investment into these kind of productions, which, to a certain extent, you can kind of offset whatever big shifts in the workflow back within that budget. I mean, for us in Asia, that's always been the big problem. Budgets. You want to get Hollywood quality on teeny tiny budgets. So for them, I think, okay, I mean, it's not really just the MCO. I mean, the whole COVID situation that's playing out over there. Obviously, you've got the political environment that they're in right now, and then obviously with the whole Black Lives Matter situation as well. So it's almost like threefold of what we're dealing with here. I mean, Hong Kong to a certain extent has got 2 problems to deal with. So I think for them, they're still well off to move forward in this post-pandemic world. Whereas in Asia, really, like Rob said, I mean, we're just trying to get back to a normalcy. That's about it. I mean, that's as good as we can hope for here.
It's great. Any final thoughts, Rob and Faizul, before we sign off?
Well, we could, if movies don't come back, we can do audiobook movie versions. I could just read the script out loud. I'm just hitting you up for that. It's my 25th anniversary today, so I'm trying to find ways.
Congratulations.
Whatever you got, just throw it in my way.
We're holding you back from a dinner, actually.
No, okay. She's decided we're not going for dinner today. We're going on. We're fine.
All right. So thank you very much to the both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know, I mean, work is resuming, so it's a crazy time for all of us. So thank you for taking the time to speak to us. Gentlemen, it's been a real pleasure. And thank you, audience, for being with us today. We hope you enjoyed the webinar today. We hope it's been insightful and that you've enjoyed it as much as we have putting it together for you. So a very quick thank you to our gold sponsor, Discovery India, and official music sponsor, BMG. Exceptionally, we'll be back on the 13th of August. And for our next installment, we will be looking at the Philippines. So until then, I'm Michelle. Be well, stay safe, everyone. Bye.